afternoon. God bless each of you. Welcome to the dwelling place. This is Evangelist Doris J. Roberson. I greet you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and I thank God for each and every one of you that are joining me at this time. Those that are joining from Facebook and YouTube, I want to especially welcome our first-time guests because you certainly didn't have to take this time to join us on this important day. So I want to say to all of our men, happy Father's Day. We greet you and we are so grateful for our men that are in our lives, our fathers and our father figures. We thank God for each and every one of you. All month long, this month, we have been focusing on fathers and father figures and just men in general. We want to celebrate the men in our lives. And so we've been talking about various subjects, and those that have been joining, I'm so grateful for the outpouring comments that you've been enjoying, these dynamic men, and tonight is only going to add to it. So as you are joining, please tag and share this Facebook or YouTube with other men and women at this time. What I want to do before I introduce our guests and get into our interview and then get into our conversation tonight, I want to offer a word of prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus, we just thank you once again for this opportunity to come before your people to share this important information. We thank God for this man of faith that's a licensed counselor. We celebrate all of our men on today, and we just ask you, Father, to continue to bless all of the men throughout this country and all across the world on this blessed Father's Day. We salute them. We salute men figures. We salute father figures. And we just asked, oh God, that you would pour out your spirit upon our speaker, upon this interview. Visit us in this moment, and we'll be so careful to give you glory and honor. We ask these blessings in Jesus' name. We do pray. And so, again, thank you for joining us on Father's Day. I know that many of you will be looking to play the replay. So I'm not concerned about whether you're looking right now, but I know that there is an interest. I receive your feedback, and I thank God for Brother Kason Gates, who is a licensed clinician in mental health. He has multiple credentials behind his name, EMDR. He's going to let us know what that stands for. I understand that he's received training in emotional mental health therapy. And that probably is not what they represent, but I thank God that he is the owner of Griot Counseling Services out of Saginaw, Michigan. I believe that's or in the Tri-County area of Michigan. And we thank God, not only is he the director, counselor, owner of Griot Counseling, but he is the assistant director of the Mental Health and Wellness Center at Saginaw Valley State University. Well, you know, this man comes very equipped and prepared to address our subject matter. And we've asked him, he selected to talk about healing behind loss and grief and the aftermath of trauma. That's a full mouth, but he's going to unpack that tonight. He's going to talk about, and he'll go further. He's going to talk about different types of loss, and then the impact of that loss and the impact of grief. And then there is a special message he wants to share with the African American population, and sometimes with the survivors and with those that have deep-rooted pain. So we want you to stay with us on tonight. And at this time, I'm going to have Mr. Kason Brother Cates to address us and to say hello, as well as to share more about your background and how you got into the mental health profession.
Thank you.
And clean up anything that I got wrong.
So thank you, Dr. Robertson, for inviting me on. It's truly a privilege to be here. Thank you for that introduction. I am from Saginaw, Michigan. It's Casson Gates.
Sorry.
Yeah. And the short story that we could just continue to work through it is you talk about me getting into the mental health arena. I kind of backed into it, if you will. It was centered around a loss of my father. Kind of started that.
All right.
I mean, it's 20 years ago to the year. The actual date will be November that he's been gone. But I remember, just when he transitioned, 65, by all standards, is considered a young man. Just dealing with that tremendous loss, and then seeking and trying to talk to someone just to kind of work through it. The services just weren't available. The therapists get their training, and they're trained and equipped to work with all different type of cases. But when you really talk about the biggest component to healing and really, really getting good therapeutic outcome, one of the biggest drivers are the relationships. And our research shows us today that, in the United States, it's typically what they're talking about. There's just a lack of Black therapists. Less than 4% are psychologists, and even fewer are men of the psychologists. And then only 1 in 4 Black Americans seek mental health services. And then that population is severely underrepresented. So to close that, I just thought about, man, there needs to be more available. When people are struggling with things like this, there's some resources. So I did some research and threw my name in the hat and started pursuing a career.
All right. Okay. And wow, thank God for you. And now you have a full range of services that you bring forth through your company, through your business, through your organization. Talk a little bit about, before you get into the subject matter of GRIO, counseling services.
Yeah. So, yes, I started GRIO 2 years ago, and with the intent of servicing any and everyone that could utilize the services. And currently what I'm doing is I do a lot of corporate work, first responders, hospitals, trainings, seminars, where I'm doing my work. I'm working on a model because the thing about Black Americans in particular, we historically just don't utilize therapy. We just don't. It's a thing that we just demonstrate. We feel like we just don't need it. And again, particularly Black men. And I say that because I am a Black man, and
yes,
some of the struggles that I've dealt with personally, we just don't seek them. So that whole thing is generated with me trying to build a model to get that population in to provide some services to them. And I'm working on a vehicle that I think will resonate really, really high with that population. I haven't quite closed the gap, but my hope is that within the next year or so, that model, because here's historically what happened in the therapeutic model. You go in, you sit down, you talk to someone, and talk therapy is in of itself very, very beneficial. But oftentimes we stall out with just that model. So there's different things, and then that's what you talked about, the EMDR. EMDR was designed as a trauma-informed uh, therapeutic model, particularly centered around vets, war veterans. But in the last 40 years, it's evolved into a full evidence-based therapeutic model to treat all forms of mental health disorders, including depression, grief, um, bipolar, any mental health disorder that's presenting itself. EMDR is a very useful tool for treating that modality, that illness.
Okay, very good. Well, let's switch gears and tonight we are talking about discovering the healing behind loss and grief and the aftermath of trauma. Now that you've shared your own personal journey, it's the first time I've offered this subject matter, or this subject matter being offered on Father's Day. And and I'm grateful for that, because as I begin to think about fathers, and what you've already said, it's probably limited services for men to even come and share their grief. And so tell us tonight what people can expect, and why listen to, why is this important, and why listen? Because obviously you said you were impacted and there was really no help for you 20 years ago.
Yeah. Um, so I want to be fair to the industry. I mean, you talk to a few people and they mean well,
Yes.
so you hope. But we've all had experiences, even with our medical physicians, that, you know, excuse me, got a sneeze coming on. You got to bear with me. It's allergies. Um, we've all had experiences with just medical professionals, and we've had really, really rough experiences. Sometimes they deal with you with a very limited, low level of compassion. You have to visit with them multiple times to get resolved to whatever it is you're working through. You're marginalized. You end up changing physicians sometimes, several times, to get to the end goal. So just being fair to the profession, I spoke with a few people, and it was okay. But again, just that relationship wasn't there. And the relationship is the biggest factor when you're talking about recovering from any condition. If you have a good medical doctor, historically you have a good relationship with them, and that's very, very important in the therapy world. And that just didn't happen for me. It just didn't happen. So just to be fair to the industry, they tried. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. They didn't seem uninterested or uncared. They just wasn't what we would call culturally competent to give me the services that could really benefit me. Yeah.
So take it a little bit further as we talk about this day being Father's Day. And to those that are joining, we want to say Happy Father's Day. And you say that there is different types of loss and grief. So talk about the difference in terms, also include the difference in terms of how men and women approach loss, and share. What have you learned in your profession in terms of mental health and the impact of loss and different types of loss? And are we talking about loss of a loved one, or loss of job, or are we talking about loss of engagement with family? I'm not sure. Why don't you tell us more?
Sure. So the things that we grieve that oftentimes just get kind of swept under the rug, we just power through, is a phrase that I use. This is what happened. This is how we go. So obviously, I think some of the first things come to mind when people think about a loss of something and then we grieve behind it is family death. That's the first thing historically people think about: the death of a family member or a close friend or a partner. But there's other things. The end of your marriage, something that you really invested in and you thought that would be for forever.
Yeah.
You grieve that, and those things come to an end. A very dear friendship, maybe you and a person have been friends for decades, and something came up that really challenged and strained the relationship. Um, Leaving your home or neighborhood or community. Um, you lived there all your life, and maybe financial circumstances or whatever came up caused you to have to relocate. The end of your job or career, you know, maybe you work somewhere and they said, we're going to have to close. The end of this is coming. Uh, Losing your financial stability, your job, um, the loss of your health. People don't think about that. You're very
Yeah.
healthy. You're going about your day, your life. You go into a medical evaluation. They tell you have this condition that impacts your life. Um, some people, uh, their youth and vitality. You wake up one morning and you realize that you just can't take care of yourself anymore. You're elderly, or your children have to come in and help, or something is not being able to have children. You're a young couple and you think that you're uh, ready to start a family, and you're hopeful and that you can have a successful family, and find out that you are unable to bear children. Um, and then, like becoming disabled, you know,
Yes.
uh, that's a big thing. You're very vibrant. You're doing all the different things you want. And again, you get some news that, oh, well, we noticed whatever it is. And you can't do the things you used to do. So these are just some common things that people just don't think about, that when they're presented with this information, maybe I should go and talk with someone to kind of help me work through this. What we do is we just kind of power through. Historically, that's just what we see. When I have worked with people of the Black community, they just feel like, oh, I'm good. I'm good. That's one of the biggest things that I hear when I talk with the community is, I'm good. Um, I'm good. I'll be interesting fact is I did a loss and grief presentation at the YMCA last September, and the gentleman that came in, it was a really good group, and we did some really good work together, and a lot of good information came out from the gentleman sharing. Some had lost children, jobs. Uh, One gentleman lost his wife. It was some gentlemen there. But here was the interesting thing I learned behind that. When that group stopped, they stopped.
Mm.
No one pursued further support to help them through that transition. Now, one gentleman, I will say, just in case he's listening, just to be fair, he was at work with a coworker, and she literally died in his arms. She had a heart attack, and
Jesus.
he was trying to resuscitate her. He was working with her and trying to resuscitate her, and she didn't make it. And he did go through therapy, but he went through his process before this session, and then he came to this session afterwards. So he did pursue some support, and he said it was really helpful for him.
So talk a little bit. So there may be people that are listening. Why is the therapy so important, and how do you go about encouraging? We're particularly, as you said, interested in our African American population to pursue and get the help. Why and how do you get them to get the help?
And so that's the $1 million question.
Yes.
That's the $1 million question. So it's important that you do it because it helps sustain your mental health wellness, which also contributes to your physical wellness.
All right.
Okay, that's just the correlation is there. If you're in a state of depression, you will eventually start to feel bad. Your physical health will be impaired because of your mental health state.
All
Okay.
right.
So it's important that you manage your mental health just as if though you had a broken ankle or a broken arm. That's very important. The $1 million question is again, um, just men particularly have just been taught be strong, power through, you can do this, you're on your own, you don't need anybody, um, you could just do this. Uh, and so, again, the challenge is getting them to understand that, and this is totally confidential, like no one knows that you're working through a therapeutic situation unless you tell them.
Right.
But, but it's really, really, really a challenge. So, of the theoretical orientation of therapy, right? This is just the research behind it. So you have stages of pursuing therapy. And so one of them we call the pre-contemplation, number one. And the pre-contemplation really represents says, I don't even think about it. Like I'm not even thinking about it. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing to consider. Okay. And then there's the next stage of contemplating. Like maybe there is something going on. Okay. And then we go into preparation. Like so there's something going on. Let me prepare to take care of this. And then we go into the action stage of it. So I'm actively doing things to help me navigate this dilemma in my life. And then we want to maintain it. But the challenge that we have is getting people to buy into the model of just talking to someone to help them navigate some of these stressors that they face in their life. That's the $1 million question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, my question to those, what kinds of, you talked about physical and the mental health, there's a correlation. So, sometimes we have to have bad news before we take things further to pursue. It's, once our health start to fail, uh, and you see signs of that's leading to even more depression or other symptoms. Talk about what symptoms should men and women recognize and be aware of when they have not come into therapy.
Yeah, so good question, great question, good point. Loss of energy, um, just a very limited energy level in doing things. Now that some of
Mhm.
that does take place with aging. You just don't have the energy that you once had. But if it becomes overbearing, that you really just don't feel like doing much of anything, um, you don't have the energy or the gusto for anything. Um, Constant um, stomach aches,
Mhm.
headaches, poor sleep,
Mm.
uh, hypertension.
Mhm.
Hypertension. A lot of people say, "Well, it run in my family." Well, you know, so I'm gonna stay in my lane. I'm not a physician, but
Yes.
but, I, but there is a correlation with hypertension and stress. Okay, uh, if you're dealing with a lot of stress, your blood pressure can be increased and can be elevated just because of the amount of cortisol that you're carrying in your body at all times. Okay, so when you start talking about my blood pressure's going up, I just can't get my blood pressure down. We often it'd be very helpful for you to go in and sit and visit with someone to see what are the triggers and the drivers of that. And historically, there are things that's causing that. There are things, and you have to be willing again to make yourself available to go in and try to figure out what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, with the benefits of therapy, Um, have you been able to see some of the benefits of feedback that you've received from, I'm just going to say, particularly Black men coming in? And you talked about the one successful workshop, but then they didn't follow up. Could it have been related to financial reasons why they didn't continue, or they didn't have the insurance? That's a 2-point question. I guess I was also asking, what kind of feedback do you hear when you heard people say, man, this was really helpful to me? And I don't know if men share that in a counseling, in a therapy session.
Yes, they did, and yes, they do. I've had several conversations with some of the gentlemen, and they just talked about how impactful it was and how they benefited from it. There was talk about potentially running another group. It just has to align with my schedule and planning around it. Yes. But the overwhelming response that I get is, and have gotten, this is men and women, is that they just don't feel like they need it. Like they can get through it. I'll be all right. And then another thing is respectfully to the church, always humble to the church. A lot of people feel like, well, I'm just going to pray about it, and God is going to deliver me from whatever this thing is. I'll be okay. Now, and I always come back with them with this comparison. If you were ill physically, if you were injured or ill or any kind of way, at some point you go to the doctor.
Yep.
God allowed the science to be readily available to man to help treat you in a medical environment. Well, that same science he allowed man to be able to harness to be treated in a mental environment. This is a process. This isn't, good therapy isn't just someone sitting down talking to you and we're bantering back and forth about what we would call, we'll get into later, trauma dumping. You just don't come in and just dump every session about, what your significant other is doing or what your friends are doing or what your boss is doing. This thing is centered around results.
All right.
What are we going to do about it? We understand, and it's the same thing if you were diagnosed with cancer. Hey, you go in. I'm sorry to tell you that we did find this to be cancerous, but here's our plan. This is what we're going to do, and we feel like we can beat this thing. And you go about the process. Mental health is the same way.
Very good.
You identify the barrier, you identify the issue, and you develop a treatment plan and a target, and you pursue it and you resolve it.
Very good.
That's the way it works.
It's very good. Very good. Well, we also advertised that you would be talking about the trauma, the pain, the aftermath of the trauma. And so why don't you kind of lead us into that conversation? And then you also mentioned the deep-rooted pain after a loss, and how we should deal with that deep-rooted loss. That message to Black African Americans.
Yeah. So I'll touch on the first one real quick, and then we'll close it. As I deliver it, and different therapists have a different thing, but the ultimate goal is for you to feel better. But when you talk about deep-rooted loss and pain, we can call it uncomplicated grief or complicated grief, where it just lingers and lingers. Historically, there's a driver.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just touch on it real quick and we can always close. When people lose loved ones, let's just say a family member, and it's very, very difficult for them to get over, not children excluded. Children are always an outlier. Uh, but parents or brothers or siblings, something like that, is usually rooted in a broken or unresolved relationship.
All right.
Something wasn't said, done, or resolved before that person transitioned. And so now, historically, you're walking around carrying a deep level of guilt or anger that wasn't closed.
That's good.
And because you didn't get that closure, now you're carrying that day to day to day. And that's when you need to go in and work through that. We talk about that deep rooted. Uh, someone wanted answers to something. Someone wanted an apology. Someone wanted to express themselves about what they felt, and it didn't get a chance to happen. And so now you got to resolve it. How do I go through? How do I resolve this thing on my own? There's that deep rooted.
Yes. Yes. Wow. That's really good. That's because sometimes people can't shake it. They can't, it just comes up.
Yes.
Something triggers it and it just comes up. Very good. That's when, I mean, they probably needed it long time ago, but put it off and then it just overtakes them when that person now has transitioned and not much they can actually physically or uh, engage in with that individual. So that is really good.
And I use death because it's easy, respectfully, it's easy to explain. That's why I use it. But let's just go one step further with it, and let's just talk about like the loss of a job. Let's just say you were a on point employee. You were
Yes.
there all the time. You did what you were supposed to do. You know, never late. You just was this wonderful employee, and something happened in the office. A new director or someone came in and really just did not take to you, and within
Yeah.
6 months of them being there, you were out of your job.
Yes.
And it was a very, very sustaining job. You enjoyed it. It was a respectable place to be. Uh, it had become of your identity. Some people
Yes.
link their career to their identity, and all of a sudden it's over to no
Yes.
fault of your own. And you just can't, the legal support you look for fell through. Oh, you didn't have this. You had this document. Did anyone witness it? No. And I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. And you're just sitting there holding these bags. Like, what? That's a very, very deep rooted loss.
Yes.
And there's no closure. There's no legal ramification. There's nothing. But you having to start all over again and pick up the pieces. You need to work through that because that's going to impact you until you address it. It's not
Yes.
going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. And that's where we're easing into trauma, right? So that's a traumatic experience. That's a traumatic experience. And here's the thing about trauma. It's not just in the mind. It's in the body.
All right.
A working example, easy one, easy working example. Tell your 5-year-old child, don't touch the stove, it's hot. What do? They touch the stove. Now, after touching that stove, they're not going to do it anymore because that was a very, what we would call little t form of trauma. It touched them the burn that they got, that superficial hot sins that they got on their hand was enough. But the body remembers that. See, the body keeps the score to all trauma. It's a psychological imprint, not just emotional.
All right.
Okay? And the body remembers, or our bodies remember what our minds may try to forget. So that's why you see people, like if you have a vet, again, from war, they'll try not to remember the war. But when those sounds and things come up, the body remember exactly what that thing was like.
That's good.
It remembers it, and it puts them in a state of fear, of running, of panic.
Yep.
Okay? So it's all form of, we have little t's, we have little t trauma, then we have big T trauma. Okay? And then childhood trauma shapes the way the adult body responds. It shapes the way it responds. What happens in childhood is how we relate to others as adults and in the world. That's the way it works.
Wow.
That's the way it works.
So children that, because you bring up a very good point. So when children experience trauma within their home, it could be a loss of a parent, like you said, or having to be, for whatever reason, taken out of their home and into a different environment because, hey, a fire or whatever the case may have been. And those things happen. Those things are real. So if there's individuals here that are listening, what is your recommendation? Because sometimes, as you said, we sweep it under the rug, or it'll get better. We'll tell kids even to get better. Oh, it's okay. But speak to that.
Yeah, again, so you talk about childhood trauma, and to all your points, the neglect, the abuse, the abandonment, all of that can lead to emotional regulation, okay? And
Yes.
For emotional regulation, right? It's important. Now, just for the record, I don't work with children. I don't work with anyone under 18, preferably 21, because to counsel a child is to counsel the parent. And that's my my self-care boundary. It's very difficult. I don't work with children because it's very difficult for me to separate a child in full-blown distress and still in that distress when they leave a session. In my previous practices, outpatient therapy, I work with children, and listening to some of those stories and presentations, it was difficult to rest at night. So in my own practice, I don't work with children, but it's important that our community identify that impact that those children are dealing with, it's going to have an impact on them. And again, most of us in our community, and some across the board, just don't feel like they hear things like they'll be all right. They don't need that. Look, they'll be okay. Just leave them alone. They'll stop. I ain't worried about. They just don't understand the importance of getting that stuff out. Okay, of desensitizing that experience that the kid has had, so that the child understand that they were innocent. Children have an inert way of blaming themselves when things happen in the house.
That's
if
right.
I got better grades, daddy wouldn't have left. If I got better grades, mama wouldn't have left. Or if I would have cleaned the house more, mama wouldn't have been so mean to me or mad at me, or whatever it is. Children have a way of taking on that, and that shows up in their life.
Yes. Speak to it's Father's Day, and speak to the men and men figures. What do you want them to take away today and understand? Understand last week was National Men's Health Awareness, And as you said, there is a correlation between mental health and physical health. What do you want our men to know? And specifically, the Black men.
So our pain is real, right? It's like oftentimes we can try to normalize some of the things going on because society and our environment will tell us that that's on you or that's your responsibility, right? I mean, it comes in collective levels, right? Like family dysfunction, systemic racism, incarceration, community violence, all factors come into our life. And then when you talk about men, oftentimes when we're faced with this kind of experiences, we feel like we don't have a safe place to go to work through it. You see a big thing in the news now and in the media. I don't want to take any pot shots at law enforcement. Some of my dearest friends, my beloved brother was a law enforcement officer, but you will hear this thing now, or people say, oh, just conform, just conform. Law enforcement can come in our house and tell us that we're not complying to their direct orders in our home, and we still will be judged and evaluated for not complying in our home. It's Black men, and that could happen to any person of color, Black. I speak of men because we talk about our home, but this is something that we have to carry and we have to deal with. So where do you go when you've had that experience? Or where do you go when your son or daughter has been stopped and when an officer asks them where you're going, which they don't have a right to ask, but they have to comply with them and surrender all of their dignity, being talked to like a child, so that they don't get hurt? Where do you go with that? Where does someone go with that after being totally, and then you see people, your counterparts of another nationality, historically, the Caucasian population, not being treated in this manner, not having to answer those kind of questions, not being asked for the ID for just walking down the street. What do? It's important that you offload that information. Go and visit with someone to process that information.
Amen.
Get it out of your system so that it doesn't build.
What do you say to those that said that I don't have the financial means to receive therapy? Are there services? Help people to understand that there may be community services that, and because you have a broad background of experiences, you've dealt with substance abuse, you've dealt with outreach centers and outpatient centers, and you've dealt with veterans. So help this audience to know that where they may start the process and how to start that process in their various communities. And you can talk about your area, but there's people listening from all over where they may start to say, you know what, I think I need to address some of my issues. You've talked about loss of job. You've talked about substance abuse. You talked about grief, mistreatment in the workplace, or just so many things, transitioning in our life, or deep-rooted pain from unresolved issues with loved ones or people. You just having someone die in your arms is traumatic. When you are an employee and it's a person, as a coworker, uh, how can they not let finance be an issue?
So the short answer is people invest in what they think is important.
Okay, say that again and louder.
People invest in what they think is important.
Mhm.
And just from being in this industry, I know, I've shared this with you throughout this conversation. Some people just don't feel like this is important. And I give you, when I I answer your question in full. So just let me give you a real brief uh, example. I personally know a gentleman, like I personally know him. Within 2 years, he lost his mother, and I think his sister passed first, but he lost his mother, sister, and brother within inside of like maybe 18 months. And he just said, "Man, I'm good." I'm not, I'm not here to argue with him and tell him that he's not, but I know he's not. Like that's not normal. Like that's not normal. So now back to your question: how do people? They have to put the value into their mental wellness. And I talked to you earlier about a model that Griot is working on. I'm working on a very specific model. There's an old phrase, Black American phrase that we use in our community about church and church choirs. And you've probably heard this, but it says, "You cannot sing your way into heaven, but sing and show make you want to go."
All right.
So you people say, "I want to go, they go to church, you the choir, I want to sing, I want to sing." So I'm working on a model that would want to encourage people to go to therapy.
That's good.
Um, and that's my target over the next year or two is building this model. They might not come to the session or the program or to what it is that I'm offering because it's behind therapy, but after experiencing it, they want to gonna go.
Very good. Uh, Mr. Gates, you offered uh, a session for young men, I think, that were dealing with either abandonment or they were fathers and not in touch with their children. Uh, I think it was like a 6 week or once a week or something in the fall. Can you talk about some of you? Because it sounds like you offered community group sessions. Can you mention what was the outcome of that particular framework that you did?
Yeah, and that was the 6 week session of grief and loss for men. When I talk
What was it
about
called?
grief and loss for men, that was a specific target for grief and loss for men.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was a free seminar. And like I touched on earlier, it was really, really helpful. A couple of stories that I shared that it was just profound. Some gentlemen shared, right? So one gentleman said he had lost his dad, and he said he sounded so much like his father that he stopped talking
Mm.
because to hear his father's voice, to hear him, made him sad. So he
Mm.
reserved to be quiet. That's the kind of impact that was having on him. And then another gentleman said he noticed his mother had passed, and he said when he smiled, he looked a lot like his mother. So he stopped smiling. He said he would turn the lights off when he brushed his teeth. He stopped looking in mirrors.
My God.
He just washed his face, knew that it was clean. He brushed his teeth like he saw glimpses of himself, but he stopped looking in the mirror. And it took him 4 or 5 months before he could look into the mirror again after seeing his mother. It was a really, really insightful and helpful program. But again, no one followed up. And I don't necessarily, it didn't have to be with me. My thing was when I would see him and I'd pass him, and then I offer to him, because sometimes because of the relationship that I have with people, it wouldn't be a good fit for me to be their therapist. Like I have close relationships with some people, it just wouldn't be a good fit.
Yes, yes.
But I could refer them. So I could refer them, and I'd say, hey, if you're interested, I know some other therapists, let me know, give me a call, and I can connect you. And again, they just feel like, man, I'm good. This was good for me. Thank you. And, we all loved each other, loved on each other as we left. And we'll pass each other now. Sometimes we'll even text and see how everyone is doing, but no one really took that next step. And we'll circle back to your original question is, what do we do to get them in? And that's the $1 million question. And that's what I'm diligently working on, trying to build a model to get us to come in. Even if it's not me, just to go. Put that a part of your I think everyone should visit with a therapist twice a year minimum.
Wow.
Go in, talk, unload, see where you are, and then take off. Yeah.
That's good. What's your mantra? Would you want to share that?
Sure. So mine is relationships, perspective, feelings, impact. You have a relationship with a noun, person, place, or thing. Your perspective of it is good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is. It's the way it makes you feel. But the ultimate result being, what is the impact of it? So you have a relationship with your dad. Your perspective is that relationship is really, really good. It makes you, when you're around your dad, it makes you feel great. And the impact of that relationship is, I feel like I'm invincible. And you can apply that to any other relationship in this world that'll never change. Relationship, perspective, feelings, and what is the impact? They want all of those impacts to be a tremendous impact, a favor for you.
That's good. Well, I want to give our audience, if there's anyone that's listening, you got a question, we are going to wrap up, but we will entertain a couple questions. If there's anyone that want to put a question in the chat, feel free to do that. And I'm glad to see that we have various individuals that have joined and being blessed by the information. But if you have a question, thank you, Karen Murphy. Thank you, Gerald David, for your comments. Thank you, Dal. And thank you others that have joined on tonight. But if you have a question, we want Mo. Thank you. Oh, that's so good. A shout out to that's my dad. So that's awesome, Mo. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I do want to say this is a great man, a resource. And you see his email there. You certainly can. I'll put it back up on the screen. But this man have raised 3 children. And he didn't ask me to say this, but when you're a great model for your children, 2 of his daughters are engineers, and the 3rd one is a son, and he's pursuing engineering. And you heard his background, how he got into this. And so he's doing modeling, and I want him to speak to the fathers. Anything else that you want to share? Because it is Father's Day, and you've talked and encouraged men to take care of their health, take care of their uh, uh, yeah, it's just nice to see your children proud of their dad and saying good things. Yeah, they're saying good things about their dad. So that's wonderful. And we appreciate you even joining, because children don't even have to, say, oh, that's just dad. He's just doing his thing today. But thank you for joining, and we appreciate those that have joined. But if you got a question, Mr. Gates will be glad to entertain that question. I don't see any at this time, but the comments are awesome. So if you have a question, and we appreciate, Mr. Gates, you want to talk about your family a little bit? I don't know if you feel comfortable doing that, but you certainly can speak to our fathers and say just some great things of how you've been able to accomplish what you have. Because obviously, to have two daughters that are engineers and a son that's pursuing engineering, and you're in mental health, that's outstanding. And I'm sure your wife had something to do with that. So, and as you said, your dad transitioned at a very early age, 65, and obviously you must have been pretty young or in your, uh, young adult age, and that really must have had an impact on you. But thank God for your relationship with your children. They're here, they're rooting for you, and they've been such an awesome dad. So feel free to say some closing words, and we'll wrap up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, my wife and I really tag team and really really work closely together on getting our children up. We're equally so proud of them. The two daughters and the son. Um, that's my middle daughter Morgan and my son
Okay.
Benji, and thank you guys. And then my sister Doll, thank you uh, for joining. But yeah, my wife Tracy and I really uh, had a united front on working together with those babies. And just from the dad perspective, I signed up for it. I wanted each and every one of them. I was anticipating on them coming, and was there when they all came. And they're just wonderful children. They blessed me on Father's Day. The girls are working, and they kind of spoil their dad. It's not much that I need. They take care of me. So I really thank them for just being the wonderful children that they all are. And that's just something that their mother and I really are proud of equally, is the result of our children.
That's
Thank you.
beautiful. Beautiful. Well, that said, you put the work in and you see the results of it. And that I like what you said. You wanted them and you did the work. You were there, and that means you don't just bring them into the world. You stay with them and you put your time in. And so God bless you and your wonderful family, your sister, as well as those that have joined. And I appreciate this time. I always let the guests have any final thoughts that you might have, anything that I may have not asked that you wanted to share. Feel free to do that. We don't want to overlook anything, and definitely we want to raise the awareness, men, to take care of your mental health, and that's what this session was about. Uh, it's important, so give it to you.
Okay, thank you so much. And just in closing, a couple of things I would like to share, right? So when it comes to trauma, which I'm a trauma-informed therapist, that's why I really got a lot of training. Generation X, the results are coming out that a lot of us really didn't get what we needed. That latchkey setup
Mm,
caused a lot of harm. Please understand this. The body will remember what the mind tries to forget. Your mind will naturally try to repress things that happen to you to try to protect you, but it will come out in the body. It'll come up in chronic tension. It'll come out in fatigue. It can come out in stomach aches. It can come out in migraines. It can come out with hypertension. The body will keep the score. And think about it this way in its closing of that explanation. You see old ball players? You see old ball players and how they walk, guys that play a whole lot of basketball, they got to walk. You know, you can tell a ball player, the knees, from all of them years of playing ball, whether it was on the gym floor or cement, they got a motion to them. That's the body keeping the score of all of that pounding. The same thing happens mentally. I encourage you, find someone, find somewhere that if you just don't feel like going all the way deep into the therapeutic model, just visit with someone a couple of times a year. But I'm going to tell you something. If you find yourself visiting with someone a couple of times a year, you'll start to invest in it because you'll see the benefit of it.
Wow, that's good. That is very good. Yeah. Thank you. You'll see the benefit. I really appreciate that because I think back when I went to a physical therapist and this one condition, and I'm like, and I said, I'm going to commit to following the instruction. And I have been amazed at the result of just doing and carrying out the physical therapy things that I was told to do. Yep. And so thank you for that. I hope it has encouraged those that are listening and those that are listening to the replay that you will pass this on to someone. Your body will remember the trauma. Your mind will try to suppress it. But let's get the help we need. Let's get the help. And on Thursday of this coming week, I'm so excited. This is the first time I've had 2 African-American men. This particular gentleman is mental health clinician as well, out of Atlanta, Georgia. He's been in the work 45 years. That's a lot of time. And so I hope that you will come back and join those, because why? It is important. If they can, a few years ago, 11 or 12 years ago, National Men's Health Awareness in June, the weekend of leading up to Father's Day. So that tells me we need to pay attention. Man, it is time to get rid of that old way of thinking and take care of your mental health. The church and prayer is awesome, but I'm telling you, that's why God has given us therapists. So I'm looking forward to hearing Minister Thomas Walters this coming Thursday. And again, his focus is on the wisdom behind using mental health therapists, the wisdom behind taking care of your physical and mental health. So, and he has led, and I'm just saying this to promote that he has led the weekend in Atlanta, the metropolitan area. He has led many of those activities. So I'm sure he has something to share with this audience. So come back and be with us on Thursday, and we'll wrap up Sunday, the 22nd, with an outstanding young man by the name of Kevin Sanders, who is producer of Global Inspire Network, International Network. So he has a word from the Lord. God is our source. Yes, He is. He's our Father, and He is our source of wisdom, source of character, source of everything we have need of, including encouraging us to take care of our physical and mental health. God bless each of you. Thank you for joining. And Mr. Cakeson, did I say it right that time?
Casson.
Casson,
Okay.
you have been a blessing to our audience. I thank you. I thank your children, those that are joining, your family members for joining. I appreciate this. Won't be the last time. So if there is anything else you want to share, his email is, again, GRIO counseling at gmail.com. I will put it back up again and let it scroll so that you may take a picture if you like and reach out to him. He said he can refer other therapists to you. If you have a question, feel free to email him at the information that's scrolling. Any other comments, Mr. Gates?
Thank you, Dr. Roberson, for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I did see two other names. I just want to shout out to my brother-in-law, Gerald David, and my fellow bike crew member, Karen Murphy.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. Yeah, so just want to say thank you for the support.
That's so wonderful. Thank you. I know that those that may have joined late, in the replay, you can go to Doris J. Roberson Ministry and, of course, download the session tonight. You can do that to share with someone else. And also here on Facebook at Doris Roberson. It will be there as well. God bless you. Please stay with us while I end this session.